So what does a Zen master have in common with a Google engineer? I know it sounds like the setup for a punchline, right? But believe it or not, they both hold a key to calming our minds. Today, we're going to explore two really powerful paths to mental clarity. One is ancient, one is super modern, and they might just change the way you think about, well, thinking itself.
We've all been there, right? That feeling where your mind is just a total whirlwind of worries and to-do lists and just random thoughts popping up all over the place. Finding even a second of real peace, it can feel totally impossible. So the real question is, what can we actually do about it?
Well, this is where a really powerful metaphor from Zen master Subul Sunim comes in. This is going to be our guide for today. He says, there are two ways to deal with a busy mind. You can patiently wait and let the mud settle, or you can get in there and actively scoop it all out.
Think about that image for a second. Muddy water. It's a perfect way to describe our minds, isn't it? That mud represents all of our chaotic thoughts, our emotions, our distractions. And when it's all stirred up, we can't see clearly at all. We just feel confused and honestly pretty overwhelmed.
Okay, so the big question is, how do we actually clear this water? We're going to dive into these two totally different paths, one of quiet observation, the other of active investigation. And we're going to see how these ancient ideas got put to the test inside one of the most modern companies on the entire planet.
All right, let's talk about Path 1. This first approach asks us to do something that, well, it might just be the hardest thing ever, and that is to do nothing. It's all about patience, observation, and just letting that mud settle all by itself. This method is called Vipassana. It comes from the Southern Buddhist tradition, and the core idea is, it's incredibly simple. That doesn't mean it's easy, though. Far from it. The idea is you don't fight your thoughts, you don't try to push them away, you simply watch them. You just observe them as they pop up and then disappear, kind of like clouds passing in the sky. And by doing this, you stop stirring up the water. You give the mud, all those tangled thoughts and messy feelings, the space it needs to just slowly, gently drift down to the bottom. And what's left behind? The water's natural state, clear, calm, and peaceful.
But what if you don't really have the patience to just sit around and wait for the mud to settle? What if you want to actively get in there and remove it? Well, that brings us to path number 2, a much more hands-on, investigative approach.
And this right here, this is the huge difference. While Vipassana says, hey, just watch your thoughts, this second path says, nope, question them. It's a total shift from being a passive observer of your mind to becoming an active detective. Now, the tool for this is something called a Huadu, which basically translates to a great question. You can think of it like a Zen koan. It's not some riddle you're supposed to solve with logic. Actually, it's a question specifically designed to break your logical mind and point you directly to the source of consciousness itself.
And here's a fantastic example of how powerful this can be. You've probably heard of the writer Eckhart Tolle. Well, he was in this moment of just deep, deep despair, thinking, I can't stand myself. And then something clicked. He realized, wait a minute, if there's an I and a self that it can't stand, then there must be two of me. That question, who is the I? It totally shattered his old reality and led to this profound shift.
So, okay, we've got these two incredibly powerful ancient traditions. But how in the world do you take something from a monastery and make it work inside a fast-paced, modern, tech-driven company? Well, that's where our second master comes in, a Google engineer by the name of Chade-Meng Tan.
Meng saw just how much potential these practices had for the high-stress world of Silicon Valley. But what made his approach so revolutionary was that he stripped away all the religious language and reframed everything in the language of science and emotional intelligence. And from that, he created the now famous Search Inside Yourself program.
And the way he structured it was honestly brilliant. Step 1, that's pure path 1. Using Vipassana to just let the muddy water settle. Then, once your mind is calm, then you get to step 2, which is all about using that new clarity to gain some real self-knowledge. And finally, step 3 builds on that foundation to create new mental habits, turning compassion into what the corporate world likes to call interpersonal skills.
And get this, the results were just staggering. We're talking about just 15 hours of practice spread out over 7 weeks. And people weren't just saying they were less stressed. They were reporting that the course had literally fundamentally changed their lives. Meng said that sure, people talked about getting promotions or feeling happier. But the piece of feedback that really truly hit him the hardest was this one.
It wasn't about productivity. It was about a deep shift in their relationship with themselves. It was about self-compassion.
And that leads us to the really surprising and frankly deeply inspiring ultimate goal of both of these paths. Yeah, it starts with a quiet mind, but it definitely does not end there.
Zen master Subul Sunim said that with proper practice, compassion isn't something you have to try to do, it's something that just can't help but emerge. And Chade-Meng Tan saw the exact same thing happen in a corporate classroom. So it seems like the end game of both settling the mud and removing it is exactly the same: humility and kindness.
Now, that's a beautiful idea for one person, but can calming our own inner worlds really have a bigger impact? Can it create real, tangible change on a global scale? And this was Meng's secret mission the whole time. He actually confessed that when he created Search Inside Yourself, his private, super audacious goal, it wasn't just about making Googlers happier. It was way, way bigger than that. He wanted to create the conditions for world peace. His theory was actually pretty simple. He figured that world peace requires global compassion. But compassion on that scale is emotionally draining, right? It needs a sustainable fuel source. And for Meng, that fuel is a combination of inner peace and inner joy. It all starts with you. By cultivating your own inner peace, your own inner joy, you build the foundation needed for genuine compassion to arise. And when that scales, from person to person to person, that's when you start to change the world. So, at the end of the day, we're left with this really fascinating choice, aren't we? We have two ancient paths, both proven to work in our crazy modern world, and both leading to the same place: clarity and compassion. One asks you to patiently watch, the other demands that you actively question. So the question for you is, which one feels right? Which path resonates with you?